I'll start by saying do not do this without car jack stands or on a hoist so you don't get squished. So this is the rear leveling valve on a 123 wagon. There's two upper lines which are 12s and they go to the left and right rear accumulators. The two on the left at the lower end are the feeding and return valves for the oil. Now the connecting arm that you'll see here should have some resistance, and that was a bit loose. I have disconnected the connecting rod from the upper sway bar you can see. Now that's the bleeder valve which you have. Now because the whole system had been disconnected during the rebuild, you can see there's a lot of air in the line, and to bleeding this, which makes an almighty mess, yes I know I should have had a line, didn't seem to resolve my problem of the car not picking up. So what I did in this case is I have the donor wagon and I've pulled the valve off that one and popped that on, and you're about to see this. So just a short video of how I got this valve off. So yes, I'm sorry about the portrait view, but I'm down in the workshop with a camera leaning on something by myself. There's a 12 and a 17 about to take off the first line. And this is a pretty easy line. I forget if that is the return line, and the one above it is the feeding line with the banjo clamp. Now those two actually aren't overly complicated. Yes, you drip a bit of oil. That leveling oil is expensive, so you try not to waste as much as you can avoid. Then you get onto the left and right rear accumulator lines, which basically splay out to those accumulators on each side of the rear end, and the top one of the two was actually pretty difficult, to the point that when I took it off the donor car I actually had to take it off with a feeding line. I just couldn't get it out when I was lying on my back, but with the recipient car here I had it up on the hoist and it was pretty straightforward to do. So you can see the end in sight now with the final line coming off the rear leveling valve, and just unthreading that with my fingers for the final throws. I have a drip pan below, but I'm not going to reuse the oil here even though it's quite expensive and I've wasted a lot. So now we're going to look at the valve itself, and you can see that it's quite a crusty piece of equipment because it gets everything thrown on it. And you can see on the passenger or left side for an Australian, there's the 4 bracket bolts which are threaded up there. You can see up there. So they need to come off to enable you to take this down. Don't worry about that set of joining bolts on the line there on the top right of the picture. That was a repair for a leaking line. So I'm just taking out those 4 bracket bolts, and then the valve is ready to come down. And here it is, looking very crusty. As I said, you can see the bleeder valve on the top surface. And so in comparison to the one off the donor car, which cleaned up pretty well, you can see it here a little bit more cleanly. You can see how that connecting arm attaches to the connecting rod to the sway bar. Those connecting rods often fail and the little rubber boots on them give way, and they're a $70 fix to replace them. And they can also alter the height as well if you alter the thread to them. So this is me just bleeding the pump after I put the new one on. You can see it's got good flow, and then I've replaced that, and I think that has resolved my issue.